Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mission Debrief, episode number 5, mission number 140, April 17th to be exact, Columbus to Washington, D.C. and back. My name is Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And this episode, as well as this season, is sponsored by
Specialty Gas House.
So let's dive right into this, Haley. Mission number 140. We're getting up to 150, 10 away from 150.
That's correct.
Or 9.
Well,
10.
140 plus 10 is.
Yeah, 50.
So 10 missions from now.
10 missions. Okay, I don't know why that always amazes me. That's a lot of missions.
It's a lot of missions.
Yeah. It always amazes me, and I'm like, and then I think we figured out it's next
year.
Next year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be next year.
2026.
Well, just keep listening to the podcast because I'll get really excited on mission number 150. Okay, so let's dive right into it.
So this flight is sponsored by the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. So it's the collection of airports in this area. So obviously the John Glenn International Airport is part of that. And they have a 5K every year. And the money that is raised as well as other funds are donated to sponsor an entire flight. So that was the flight we just took. And for those of you who are eagerly awaiting the date for the 5K for 2025, we have just been made aware it will not be happening due to the crazy amount of airport construction going on. So, which
is pretty, I know construction, especially in Ohio. I mean, I know they're not the ODOT people, but it's always changing every single day.
Yes.
It changed, the patterns changed a little bit. I know we talked about they got rid of my McDonald's. I was super sad about that.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot.
Yeah, I feel like you get off a plane, you need a hot fudge sundae, but it is not there. So if you're looking for McDonald's, it is gone.
Yeah, it's gone. And the 5K took place on the runway, which was really cool.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So last year they adjusted it a little bit due to this kind of thing. And then this year they're like, there's just no way. So we don't have an estimated date for when that will resume, but we have always loved our partnership with the Columbus Airport. So we hope that.
I guess the logistics of that, I didn't know it was on the runway.
Yeah.
How that would work. If they have to halt, they can't halt flights. I mean, it's an international, I'm assuming they use one part of it or the back part of it or go all the way around.
I've never been. This is going to be my first year.
Oh,
sad.
Okay. So
they sponsor this flight and something else that's really cool. So there's just legalities of they can't send airport employees on the flight. So instead of the sponsorship positions for Guardians going to the airport, sometimes they'll appoint another organization. This time we got to kind of select our own, and we have been in the process of growing our relationship with the National Veterans Memorial Museum, which while it's a national museum, it's located here in the heart of Ohio in Columbus. So we took employees from NVMM, and they were awesome Guardians, by the way. So that was a really cool opportunity because now it just gives them the chance to take this back to the museum, which is all about sharing veteran stories. Sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. So now they can advocate for this experience for veterans as well. And then we can continue to push veterans to go to their museum.
And I know we work, alongside with them on different projects as well. I know we will be having the reunion.
Yes, the reunion. That is such a good point. The reunion this year in August will be at that museum.
Yeah. And so if you're listening to the podcast and you're getting ready to go on a flight before, especially summertime, or if you just went on a flight, or if you were on flights in years past or family, whether you're a veteran or a Guardian, reunion. Tell us a little bit about reunion. I know you weren't expecting to talk about this, but
Sure.
It's a place for everybody to gather, share their stories.
Well, the priority is we sat back and looked at with our, I was going to say team, but it's Lori and Tim who are just really amazing volunteers of ours. They head up the reunion, and there's a lot of energy and time and effort that goes into planning a reunion because, like you said, it is we've flown over 10,000 veterans, right? We've talked about that. Mm-hmm. All of them get invited. Mm-hmm. So it's a big deal what they're doing and the time and energy that they're putting into this. So we're so appreciative of that. And so we sat with them and kind of just talked about feedback they'd received from the previous year. And one of the big things that we all agreed is the core of why we exist to have a reunion is for the opportunity for veterans to not only come and reunite, but also it's an opportunity for them to relive and then re-inspire other veterans to come fly. So it really is about veterans being with other veterans and being part of their Honor Flight Columbus family. We always talk about that. It really is a family. So we always want Guardians to go, and we always want Guardians to come see their veterans. But the big thing is providing a space for veterans to come and, like you said, tell your stories, which is why the museum makes perfect sense and brings up another partnership along with the museum that you kind of referenced there. We have been looking for a while. How do we want to share veteran stories? How can we be good stewards of their stories? What happens when we have them? What do we do with them? And how do people continue to access them? So we had looked at a couple of different avenues. I know I'd spoken with the Library of Congress in the past. They have a big database of veteran stories because you also want it to be a reputable organization that is going to store these really important narratives. So we actually are partnering not only with the National Veterans Memorial Museum, but an organization called StoryCorps. So you can download the app on your phone, or you can use just the internet, good old-fashioned Google search. And StoryCorps is not only a database in and of themselves, but with military stories, they are sending our veteran stories to also be stored at the Library of Congress. But this is such a faster way. You create a free account, you hit record, you type in the keyword Honor Flight Columbus, and boom. So it's a really, 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 really good way for us to be sharing veteran stories. So this is something that we kind of rolled out on this past flight. And then hopefully we've got some stories in there. I know we have some now. The museum pointed out to us. So if you are just interested in seeing what stories, go to storycorps.com. You can also go to the National Veterans Memorial Museum. I think they have a link on their website for StoryCorps, and then just search Honor Flight Columbus.
And I know that we'll be there at the event. Cameras will be rolling.
Yes.
There'll be a place to share stories.
And hopefully we can intermix that with the podcast.
Yeah. No, would love to do that.
Yes.
So like we said, Guardian or veteran in the past or coming up to, which would be through 143.
Yes. June 12th flight.
Yeah. Then go ahead and mark your calendars, in August for that event.
Yeah.
Okay. So
back to Mission 140
Sorry, didn't mean to sidetrack.
No, it's a good sidetrack. I think that's a really important sidetrack. And it kind of brings us to talking about veteran stories. Let's talk a little bit about the veterans themselves who flew with us. If you recall from last mission 139, we had a very different demographic. We had 8 Korean War veterans, I believe. We had a World War II veteran. We had a 99-year-old veteran. This trip, how old was the oldest?
I'm gonna guess on 88.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
that sounds right.
Good.
And then what, like youngest would
About
be
67.
67.
Yep.
So average would make that about what, like 77?
Yep.
Yeah. And then we had 1 Purple Heart veteran, which we'll talk a little bit later when we get to talking about
And
the war.
5 female veterans.
Which is it was so fun.
It was super neat. And actually, typically, we'll have, guess me if I'm wrong here. Tell me if I'm wrong here. We'll typically see 1 to 2 on a flight.
Yeah.
On average.
On
sometimes
average.
3. It seems like these ladies, and I feel like a couple of them knew each other. Maybe
Yes,
2 of them.
they did. Yeah.
And so I was taking pictures of them outside at the Women's
That was
Memorial.
fun.
And they were just, they were so proud to be
Yes.
like all together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so that's also something I want to talk about later is that experience, whether it's, like you said, whether it's 5 or 2 or 1, what that looks like for our service women. How is this honor flight for you? We want to talk specifically about that. But I guess, talk a little bit. We show up at the airport. Here we are again.
Here we are
boom,
again.
Boom, boom.
Super early in the morning.
Yes.
We're there. Jumping on the plane.
Yeah, I felt like logistically things went smoother this time. We were wiser about the elusive people movers. We flew into Dulles, in case you have forgotten, we did not fly into Ronald Reagan. So flew into Dulles, got in, worked with our airline for this flight was Avello again.
Yep.
And then next flight, we will be flying Allegiant. So a little bit of a change there.
By the way, a little side note behind the scenes. Staff is super
yeah.
nice. They're getting used to us. I always, say hello to everybody.
Literally everyone.
Trying to get to know everyone. And then I'm like, trying to get some specific content, which we can talk about later. I got to go out on the tarmac early in the morning without a coat.
Wait a second. Can we stop? You did not get this because you were friendly and charming.
Okay. Well, you asked if I could go.
I said, "Can we go out on the tarmac?"
So
and
I made
she
lots
said
of
yes.
So I made lots of friends, guys that were moving planes around. I saw it roll up. I got to film that. I got to see the
It was really
underbelly
great.
of the plane, and loading wheelchairs into the undercarriage of the plane, which is super cool.
Yeah, I didn't.
Super neat.
This sounds stupid, but I didn't think that would be that interesting.
It was-
Like, I knew the footage would be cool, but I just mean like conceptually, and then watching the footage back, which we'll be releasing some of that, and actually watching the wheelchairs get loaded into the belly of the plane.
Yeah.
The guy was in the belly of the
Yeah,
plane.
there was two of them in there, and they were like sorting it. So as it come up in the thing, they're like, "Hurry, shuffle it in there,
Yeah,
and like organize
yeah.
it." So it's pretty.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I found that really cool.
I don't know why. I would assume. I mean, I know that there's underbelly plane like luggage, of course.
Sure.
But like when you actually see it, you're like, "Oh, that's."
It's a lot bigger than I imagined.
Yeah. I mean, they were sitting in there, Indian. I mean, what do you call it?
Pretzel, crisscross applesauce?
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's, I mean, the one guy was on his knees, but like ducked over, like shuffling
Yeah.
through, and it was pretty neat to see. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
it's cool.
it was super cold. Should have wore a coat.
Yeah, started out really cold in Columbus, but
Yeah.
thankfully by the time we really got into DC, I mean, I still had a jacket on all day, but it was beautifully sunny.
Yep.
Beautifully sunny. I mean, almost a little too sunny for those of us who were trying their hand at photography. But woof. Anyway, so we get there and the day kind of starts rolling. And I think one of the things we really learned a lot on this flight, which we were aware of, but kind of noticing where we might want to adjust our schedule a little bit. So instead of making certain stops earlier, we have to really preserve and protect our gate time at Arlington National Cemetery, which is 10:30. So if you miss that gate time, you are out of luck. You are not seeing the changing of the guard. You're not getting into Arlington, period. So we are making some adjustments on our end, which it might be the nerd in me, but I think logistics are fascinating. So I love working with the team to kind of come up with how can we do this. And Beth had changed the schedule by the time we got to the buses in such a way that was like, yeah, this feels far more comfortable.
There are a lot of, as you go on honor flights, if you happen to notice, there are a lot of random things that happen because we are going to hide, touristy kind of areas. But also, our buses, you had said in a previous episode, the buses go all the way up, which is pretty neat.
Right, all the way to the Tomb of the Unknown.
I mean, I always see people like hiking down this long road. I'm like, where do they park? But now, it makes
Yes.
sense. But as we were leaving, there was a funeral procession going through, which we had to wait on as we were trying to leave on the buses. I mean, there was a band playing. There was lots of soldiers and
riderless horse.
riderless horse. Yeah. So there was lots of cars behind that, of course, like family and friends. So sometimes there are delays, which can havoc into this thing.
And I think, didn't we talk on I think it was one of the very first episodes about like dignitaries, because the only people who are allowed to be escorted up to that area that we are either honor flights or dignitaries, like important government officials.
Which we don't really point that out, on the flight but it's pretty neat.
We should because actually I think, I don't know, it might have been
that's an honor in itself.
Yeah, it is. And I think Tim, who I just had mentioned earlier in terms of the reunion, he's one of our bus leaders, and he will say when he's doing the tour, he'll make a point to say, dignitaries get this, but so do our veterans, because this is how we see you. You are the royalty of America.
Yeah, and if you go there, with family and you are a veteran, you're not going to get the same treatment.
You're going to hike.
You're going to hike.
So there was something I thought was kind of cool. I mean, I'm obsessed with tulips. They're my favorite flowers. But when you're going to Arlington National Cemetery, it's on the Virginia side, right? So the Potomac River runs. And then it's right there is also Air Force Memorial and Iwo Jima. And I always think of it in terms of being part of Arlington, but it's actually closer. It's closer to Iwo Jima because you can walk from Iwo Jima. And there is the Carillon, which was a gift from the Netherlands. In case you don't know, it's from the people of the Netherlands to the people of the United States as a sign of the lasting friendship between two countries. And this particular time, obviously the cherry blossoms were gone, like we saw the flight before, but they have a bunch of tulips, Netherlands tulips, it's very fitting. So those are blooming and they were beautiful. But as I was thinking about, kind of recapping, something that I learned in rewriting the tour for the trip about the Carillons. Originally originally there were only 50 bells in the carillon. So the bell, it rings out, on a schedule. It has certain songs it sings. All of them are significant and symbolic of important matters. But the point I wanted to make is originally there were 50 bells. And then in 2022, 3 bells were added. And these are really cool to me. And I just thought I wanted to mention them because I don't think people realize. So one was added in honor of General George Marshall, who helped rebuild Europe after World War II. One was added in honor of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and her advocacy for human rights. And then Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his lifelong work advancing civil rights. And I think those 3 elements, I don't know, there's a lot to be said about adding, for all the reasons you could add bells, to add those 3 in combination with each other with this sign of lasting friendship to make human rights, civil rights, and then, of course, rebuilding a continent after a global conflict is, that's pretty powerful.
Not only is it to think about it, not only is it years later, many years later, but logistically as well, did they, you got to think about, did they create it with the known fact that they could move space to make, room for more bells? It's kind of for them to go through that much trouble, years and years later, just you can tell that means a lot.
Well, and I think like a lot of times we see that and in passing, like you see it on the way to Arlington or on the way to Iwo Jima or leaving Iwo Jima. And I think what was striking to me and why I added this to the tour was because yes, it's a sign of friendship between 2 countries, but in order for that friendship to be healthy, in order for that friendship to function, you have to value what? Human rights and civil rights and rebuilding after a global conflict. Like those are things that make the friendship and I'm not getting political in any way. It's just it makes sense to me, and I think it's really interesting. So obviously just wanted to kind of pop that in there, and then relevant because the tulips were so pretty.
And
all colors.
And on a side note of that, of years later, which I thought was pretty cool, trying to teach my 11-year-old boy. We just went to Tennessee. I know this is a crazy side note. Stopped in a small town as we were making our way, through the deep woods of Tennessee, Monticello, Tennessee. Saw a World War I monument in the middle of town, and almost as if the whole roadway system was built around that. It's like the first roundabout. There's no lines. There's no nothing. Very, very small town, but there was wreaths, fresh wreaths there.
That's cool.
Still paying homage to those World War I vets that are long gone.
Yeah.
Even the people that knew them,
right,
are gone. So it says a lot about community, and about the people around it. So.
I think you bring up a really good point, and why the carillon was of value to me to add to this, to chat about it on this episode, is that like we have these symbolic moments within our communities all over, whether you're in Monticello, Tennessee, or you're in a more obvious place like Washington, D.C. And we were even talking earlier about like, you were talking about one in Grove City. Like there are places all over that people can pause and reflect on how we've gotten where we've gotten and who got us here and on whose backs we stand, and how often are we not taking advantage of those moments. So use this as a challenge to find the veteran memorial in your community or something in your community representative of something greater than yourself.
Yep.
So anyways, with that, at this point we went from Iwo Jima. So we started at Iwo Jima this time, and then we went from there to Arlington to see the changing of the guard, made our gate time. So that's always successful. A couple episodes ago, Beth talked about that being her greatest fear. We pulled up I think 10:33, she said. So they give you, there's a set amount of time they're allowed to give you on either side of 10:30, but it's not much. And then something that was kind of cool when we were going through the earlier part of the cemetery, Deneen, the green bus leader on this trip, was pointing out there's like a sign, an electronic sign, and there's names on it, and those are the funerals that are going on that day. So I thought was really cool that she pointed that out. And then like you said, when we went to leave Arlington, that was the funeral procession that we saw, was the name that we had seen earlier, which was kind of a cool, see that full circle kind of moment. So then after that, we ate lunch at Navy. your chicken sandwich was back.
Yeah,
got rid of the spicy one.
Ace, thank you. Whatever part you had in that, I know you delivered them, but
well, honestly, I think it was Beth. I said to Beth, I said, you know what happens when Alex gets grumpy, right? And she goes, oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, he doesn't like the spicy chicken sandwich. See what you can do.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate it. Everybody who had a hand in that one, because oh, okay.
No, I told her you didn't like it, but also I think the veterans weren't super.
I must have complained a lot. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. People either loved it or hated it.
Yeah.
And Beth called Ace and said, listen. And he said, I got you. Alex doesn't want that sandwich. He's not going to get that sandwich. So anyways, this particular time at Navy, the Navy Memorial, which if you aren't familiar, it's right in the heart of downtown DC, kind of where the more museum, cultural centers meets the downtown kind of business side of things. And what I love about that is you're standing, and we've talked about this before, where you're standing where people come on their lunch breaks and they just walk past, but then across the street is the National Archives. But then behind you are all these corporate buildings, and it just kind of is representative of time and space and the energy of the society we're living in, which is kind of cool. I don't know, that might be too heavy for the mission debrief. But something that was interesting to me is because we had said when we were going on this flight, we wanted to capture more just kind of candid interactions between people. And that's when we were at Navy, we just kind of walked around and saw people interact, which was really neat.
Yeah, there was a lot of, and I always see that at Navy as well. You know, there's different places to sit. I almost think of it as different levels, because you have the inner circle benches, outer circle benches, and then benches that are along the perimeter of the whole place.
Because the memorial itself is centered around the largest stone, I think, map of the world, or granite or something.
Yeah, and I always find very fun veterans, individuals. I have the craziest conversations around there.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know why, but I lock eyes with people and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Tell me a good one.
Yeah, tell me a good one. This time, I spoke with a veteran about, he had let me know, for over 30 years, he was umpiring and refereeing. And we talked about some big stars. He saw them when they were in high school before they went pro.
That's so cool.
And and he's like, oh, you're from Grove City. I state finals football, which I've heard of that they did. But I mean, this was years and years and years, grass, dirt field ago. He was one of the referees, and I'm like, oh, this is really neat. He's talking about, how we had hay along the sides because it had flooded. And as a side note, and then I think Ironton, they were playing in the finals. There's, good country boys from the river.
Oh, sure.
And he goes, we had kept on telling them to put down the straw that was there for the mud and flood, because they were putting them in their mouths on the sidelines.
At home.
Yeah. It was pretty neat. So
that's cool. And I think actually he was one of the gentlemen that received a flag at World War II. I don't know if you caught that, because I was looking at footage later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, we had two veterans who were both 88 years old, and I believe their birthdays were like 4 weeks apart. And so Beth was like, I don't think it's appropriate to choose one. I think we need to honor both of them. And of course we were like, well, yeah.
And typically it comes around just knowing, the veteran that I gave the flag to last season, but typically tears are held for later in the day. There were some tears.
This was a very impactful moment for these guys.
Yeah. And getting that flag, it was just, the water was flowing.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So this is a great time. So in case you're unaware, those of you listening, at World War II, we always like to take a moment and just kind of absorb where Honor Flight Columbus has come from. We started flying World War II veterans. We're still flying World War II veterans, but we've added so many more stories to that list. And we honor the eldest veteran and or the World War II veteran, if we fly one, with a flag presentation here in front of the group. And we have opened up this opportunity. And before I go into the details of how you can get involved with that, the reason we've decided to open this up has a lot to do with how vocal you've been about what it meant to present the flag. So like you and I were talking separately just about like meaningful moments in life. And when I asked you, well, what's a meaningful moment in your life? What did you say?
I said the most meaningful was presenting a
flag.
Well,
you said one
of, yeah. Presenting a flag to the veteran from last season, actually.
And why was that meaningful to you?
being able to typically, I mean, you'll find me either, I've said this before, at a Walmart, McDonald's. If I see a veteran that's wearing, a hat, whether it be Vietnam, World War II, you don't see World War II as much, Vietnam, Korea, anyone, all the way up to today. I take it very serious, especially when I'm with my little boys, to go up and thank them for their service. I get all sorts of responses. Everyone takes it differently, but
why do you feel the conviction to thank them?
Because I know personally, and I think a lot of it has to do, and I was this way before, but especially since then, a very good friend of mine, just call him Joey. You would know if especially if you're from Grove City, passed in Afghanistan. He was a sniper, and at that right there, the meaning of sacrifice, just knowing who he was, and I would say he's a better person than me. Like just smiling, happy, would give the shirt off his back for someone, and for someone like that to give his whole life, for this country. I try to remind my little boys that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for, the veterans that came before us, who fought for our freedom. And I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say this generation, I'm not, I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, this generation doesn't understand. But I would say in some senses they don't, because they haven't had their friends go to war. They haven't seen their family members, aunts, uncles, moms, dads.
In other words, what you're saying is how tangible the sacrifice
correct
of a veteran has changed in frequency.
Yeah, especially on a bigger global state,
right?
Where we've lost a lot of people. So anyway, being able to thank them personally, I don't think I could thank enough of, especially the elder generation of veterans, the way I was able to thank, the veteran that day and give him the flag. But to give him the flag was a whole new step. Giving him a tangible item of something that he fought for, was different for me.
And it's also, a flag is really cool because it not only represents what he fought for, but it represents what you live under, like you as an Alex. And so whether it's Joey or whether, who served, when did he serve? Do you remember the years?
No, we were past college when he had joined.
So I would assume Global War on Terrorism, he was GWAT. Right. So you whether you're a GWAT soldier or you're a soldier of World War II Korea, I mean, there are, and we talked about this before, there's common threads to your sacrifice and your experience. And so as Americans, as citizens here in this country, having the opportunity to not only tangibly thank someone or tangibly be reminded of their sacrifices you're sharing with the story, but then to be able to present a flag.
Yeah. And I think one more point on that too, that makes it so special is I think being able to thank, like I said, the older generation of veterans, Vietnam, Korea, a lot of those guys, whether they want to relive it or not, whether they want thanked or not, I've talked to a lot of veterans who feel like it was back when, whether they were thanked or not when they came home, a lot of them the opposite way. A lot of people, especially younger generations, don't know about the history.
Right.
So they've forgotten about it.
Right.
So they're not being thanked anymore. And I think they should be thanked every single day.
Yeah.
However your service was, big or small,
right.
In country out, it doesn't matter. You were part of the bigger picture, and we wouldn't be here enjoying this podcast today without it. So
right.
Yeah.
And so I think, in hearing you talk about that and reflecting for a moment on the importance of having the opportunity to thank a veteran, but also be involved in this moment of going more than just saying thank you, though incredibly imperative for our communities. Also, you have the opportunity to be part of this flag presentation from your own home. So if you are interested, you can go on to honorflightcmh.org, go to our Get Involved page and click on the tab talking about sponsoring a flag. And you have the opportunity to donate a flag, and you can do this in honor of a loved one, or perhaps you have a veteran in your life that you're inspired by, or you can do it just as a grateful American. And what's really cool is we then will insert a card in the flag that has your name.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm on the next one. Come on.
We can put the name of a veteran you'd like to honor. And then you can also have the opportunity to participate in the mail call for that veteran, and we will send you a picture of the flag presentation afterwards.
That is really neat. I did not know that.
Yeah, this is new.
Every single time I figure out, I'm like, oh, there's a new element I did not know about. So.
Yeah. So that's a really cool way to kind of experience kind of what Alex is talking about here. So we got to witness 2 flag presentations at World War II, and then we head off to Vietnam.
Yeah. So this mission actually roughly in the upper 40s as far as Vietnam.
Yes.
Itself,
so obviously
veterans.
the majority of our veterans
Correct.
serving in Vietnam. And this is similar to a lot of the statistics we get on every flight, but I think it's what's really cool is getting to have everybody, regardless of when you served, visit all of these war memorials.
Yep.
So we headed to Vietnam, and there was a particular story that I wanted to talk a little bit about. His name is Michael. He served from 1966 to 1969, and he is our one Purple Heart veteran from this flight. He served, kind of the vernacular he put on his application, as a tunnel rat in Vietnam. And when he was injured around the same time, a buddy of his was also injured, but then they were, separated just medically to get their treatment that was needed. So when he got to the wall, he wanted to know if his friend's name was there. And he didn't know, and we see this a lot actually with veterans who might not know the full name of the gentleman or the lady who served, but they have like a nickname or a last name. So our volunteers spent a lot of time with him trying to figure out. He thought he knew the last name, but not how it was spelled. So we used the Vietnam memorials database to try some different searches. We're able to find the gentleman's name. His name's Robert Swally. He was 20 years old when him and Michael served together. And unfortunately, obviously, if we found him, he did not survive his injuries. And so this was Michael's moment where he realized that. And so, because when he was talking to us about the name, he didn't know if his buddy was even on the wall. And so this was the moment that he was delivered the news that his comrade in arms did not make it home. And we'll put out a reel about this because on the Vietnam Memorial's website, there's actually pictures of the unit as well as Robert. So you can actually see the visual, and then we'll put it next to Michael, who brought a picture of himself in the service, so we can kind of have all these visuals together and give you a piece of the intimacy and the power behind this moment. And you were down there with them. Were you there? Were you taking pictures of him with his service picture? Did he do? I don't know that he did a rubbing.
Yeah. They'd walk down the way later, but I think it was the other person with his guardian.
Yeah.
But I was there. There's a point in the wall, which I was with Terry Swank.
Okay.
Down there. He was holding a picture of himself looking into the wall. And there's a place, if you take the picture at the right spot, to where it looks like it's almost like 3D, like he's holding himself and then it's holding that.
Yeah.
Can't really explain it.
We'll put it in the reel so that people can see.
First of all, we were just looking at that footage. A lot of these guys, can I just side mention, a lot of these guys are studs.
I would say most of them. I'm kind of like, God,
You
why
look
don't you make them this way anymore?
I said this to a gentleman, not this gentleman, but another one. I said, is that you? And he goes, yeah. And he like kind of like smirked. And I don't know how he took it. I'm like, dude, you're a stud in the military. And he just like kind of was like, oh, that's weird. But but I was just like, man, these guys are like GQ.
They're handsome. Yeah, they are.
And they knew how to pose.
Yeah, no, and his picture, I mean, that he's holding. I think it's so cool. His guardian encouraged him to bring a picture, and I know in the past she's blown them up for them, so I don't know if she did that for him or not, but it was like an 8x10 photo, so you'll be able to really get a good image of Michael, our Purple Heart veteran, who found his friend's name on the wall. And There's a lot to be said about that moment when a veteran finds the name of someone that they knew was on that wall, or perhaps are seeing it and hearing it for the first time. And there's this quote that a veteran had said, "The first time I put my hand on the Vietnam Wall, it took my breath away. The wall seemed alive."
Yeah.
Which I think is so, I mean, for you and I, it's a sombering place. It's a place that still is emotionally impactful for us. But there's a circumstantial and life experience thing that separates you and I from the wall, because the wall is not for you and I. It's for the veterans.
Right.
And so being able to observe these moments where they lean against the wall, where they touch it, where they get close to it, but they can feel the heat coming off of the wall on the black, absorbent, where the sun is being absorbed, and there's a heat comes from it, almost like a body heat.
Yeah.
And so I just really love that quote about it being alive. And that's the point of the design. You spend a moment with your fallen comrades. You literally go beneath ground level, and then you have to come back up.
Yeah, and I think to find something that's kind of interesting as well, that we see a lot of, and there's actually some images, tends to, whether they're leaving something at the wall, or it happens a lot, and we'll kind of show some in a reel, but
actually it's in the reel that we posted already.
Okay. Pictures tend to come out.
Pictures the veterans brought with them, you mean?
Yes, correct. Of themselves, of their friends, their comrades, of family and loved ones that were there as well. And stories start to flow, which is pretty amazing. They feel whatever, conviction or whatever they feel like a presence, at the wall. That's when, their heart opens up. So
it's kind of, it's really striking what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is the wall to you and I is a list of the dead. But we go down there, and so often what we're witnessing are life-giving moments. I mean, life-giving moments, even though you're looking at a list of people who are dead. Right. I think that's really, really powerful and speaks to what sacrifice means, like what you were saying earlier about Joey.
Yeah.
And speaking of leaving things at the wall, we did leave 2 other things. This was my first time leaving anything at the wall, actually.
Okay.
So if you recall, we had 2 veterans who were meant to fly with us, one of them on the next flight and the other one on this flight. And actually, he goes by Sonny, was an Air Force veteran. His daughter communicated with us and said, my father's not doing well. We don't think he's going to make it to the fall. Is there any way we could get him on a flight now? And, Megan, our director of veterans, prioritizes terminally ill veterans. So we got him on the April 17th flight. Just a few weeks before the flight actually left, he was booked. And I think it was either, I don't know that it was even 7 days before the flight, he passed. And so what we did for the family is we had them give us an image of him. And we took pictures of veterans, Vietnam veterans, as he was a Vietnam veteran, holding that image, and then we left it at the wall, which I think is really special. The family asked us to do that because that was where he wanted to be.
Yep. And
I think that speaks volumes to the life of a veteran. So many years later, they still are identifying with that camaraderie that they're feeling with those that they served with.
Yep.
So you got some really great footage of that.
Yep.
And then we had another one. John, he was booked on the May 8th flight, and this one was rather sudden. We got a call from his wife who said, I know he's scheduled here in a few weeks, but I don't think he's going to make it. We're in the hospital right now. And, Beth was kind of, we whenever they call us like that, sometimes we encourage them, just wait it out. Just kind of see how you do. And then we can always schedule him for a later flight, whatever. And his wife said, no, I don't, basically, I don't think you understand. I don't think, this was on Wednesday. She said, I don't think he's going to make it till Friday.
Yeah.
So this gave us an opportunity to do a hero salute. And a hero salute is a program that we do. It's not a one size fits all. It's completely customized to the veteran and the situation the veteran has. So sometimes there's a veteran who, maybe they can't fly. They just like can't fly or won't fly or choosing not to fly. We can still take moments and honor them for their service. And so sometimes it looks like that. Sometimes it's veterans who are on their deathbed. When I went to go see John, he was in a semi-coma, although at that point he might have been in a full coma. And I presented him with his veteran shirt, with his Vietnam coin. I had brought a book of images of DC for the family to kind of see, and I talked through what an honor flight is. Obviously spoke to John, even though I'm sure, I don't know how much he cognitively understood, but I still believe in kind of the presence of another human being there and what that can mean. And so having that moment with the family, and then I spoke with his wife and said, if you want to, it doesn't need to be now. It can be 6 months from now. But if you come across photos of John, send to me. And I'd love to take a picture of him at the wall and at his memorial. And so I got a text the next morning that he passed. So it was literally less than 24 hours since she had first called. And so she sent me a picture, and we were able to take that to not only the Vietnam Wall, but also the Marine Memorial, because he was a very proud Marine.
And I will say, sorry to interrupt, a side note of the commitment of the operations staff here, of going that extra mile, of visiting the family, visiting, John before he passed. You drove out to Springfield Regional Medical Center, correct?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And just for those who are listening who, didn't know, all of the things that the operations staff does here, like you guys took it upon yourself to do that, to drive out there, to give them your time, and honor a veteran, even though he wasn't able to go. So
absolutely. Yeah. It's a program we want people to know about, because I don't think, and this is what I talked with his wife about, is like, we want the opportunity to have these moments with veterans, to give them, regardless of their situation at the time, the honor that they deserve. And so, but a lot of people don't think to call us until after they've passed.
Yeah.
But call us before, or somebody who maybe is like mentally not able to fly. They would be confused, or they would be, even if they don't know what's going on, it's still important to honor them for their service.
Yeah. I just know a lot of, whether it be organizations like this, having to do with anything, not necessarily veterans. Typically, you would get a call like that, from a family, and then later on you get a postcard. But you guys take it upon yourselves, that day, next day, to jump in the car, drive a while.
Yeah, same day, jumped in the car. I think like maybe an hour or two after.
It speaks bounds, about who you guys are. So anyway,
I mean, we hope that people will be more a part of that initiative, the Hero Salute. So you can absolutely call our office if you have a veteran near you. It doesn't have to be near us, like Alex mentioned. We are here for 40 counties of Ohio, and you wouldn't have to beg us to go outside of that either.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had some powerful moments at the wall, and as we always do, we went after the wall. We went to just get some footage at the Korean War Memorial, and so I wanted to ask you. We spent a little bit more time this time just looking at the memorial as
Correct.
Where we're capturing content. What is your either favorite, or do you find the most impactful in terms of elements of the Korean War Memorial?
A lot of people would say, I guess the northernmost wall, where you can look into it and you would see yourself,
with the etched faces.
Yes. However, for me, only because I see more things in video, right? A lot of people are still images, and I see things in moving picture, right? And to see the statues of the platoon that's in the field, for me, that's the most impactful thing, because they say wherever you stand around there, one of them
has their eyes on
you, and every single time I find a new little like niche spot. And film one, I'm like, oh my gosh,
it's pretty cool.
And to see that, and I think I had mentioned that I've never seen it at nighttime personally.
Oh my gosh,
in person,
striking.
For those images, I would love, to see that, because it is so real life. I know they're bigger, and I think it's supposed to be that way. They're a little bit bigger that way. By the time you see them,
the perspective,
it looks normal. However, it's so realistic looking that it's.
And you even as we were walking, because I think it's meant to be observed in motion, like you're saying.
Yeah, correct.
And
you're
so,
walking with them technically if you're walking.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you even mentioned, like you were kind of joking, but kind of serious, making an observation about like the antenna of the radio he's carrying, and just moments that you can only observe in motion, which is why we go beyond just photography and prioritize the moving picture, as you're saying, because that's how we live life. We don't live life in still images.
Yeah. I mean, the detail, that they bring into it, it's not just the posing, the way they're standing.
It's the weight of the canvas on their backs.
Yes, correct. The way some of them, there's wind blowing and it's all the same direction.
Yeah.
And I just started noticing that.
Every time I talk about the Korean War Memorial, I'm brought back to this moment I had with a Korean War veteran there a while ago now. And we walked up when we first got to the memorial. I'm pushing him in a chair, and he takes one look at the soldiers, and he just goes, "My gosh, that," because they're made of stone. He goes, "My gosh, that canvas, that poncho that we wore on our back really was that heavy."
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. That was really cool to me.
And they all have different expressions on their face, and a lot of them, like anybody would in a platoon, you put any 10, 12 people in a room, they're all going to have different expressions on their face if there's nothing's going on at the moment, right? But to put that into motion,
they're on guard.
Yes,
they're patrolling
constantly, and some of them, have that on guard defensive face. Some are angry.
Even the posture.
Yep, yeah, it's unreal. So
I think that's a good choice of being your favorite.
Yep.
So then after we left there, you like to stop at the snack shack and see if there's anything you want, but you have yet to buy.
It all looks so tasty. And then
I just don't agree.
I'm sweating. I'm hot at this point, and I'm just like, you know what? I just need to wait to dinner.
Although I guess that's where there was a hot dog. There's a picture of a hot dog, and I like turkey dogs, not beef dogs, but and then later we go to dinner, and I thought I smelled a hot dog. And then when I got home that night, I rolled into the kitchen at midnight, happened to have a turkey dog in my, so I made myself a turkey dog. So maybe it is better than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah, whoever the photographer was that made the menu, just makes it look good.
A star. So we go to dinner at the Military Women's Memorial, and there's a couple of things I wanted to mention there. First of all, going back to you saying there were 5 women. This honor flight is not for just one kind of service person, whether that be by gender, by religion, by your race, or even the branch or the era you served. It is for all veterans who served at least one day of active duty outside of basic training or 20 plus years in the reserves or the National Guard. And so one of the things we've talked about is we want people to see themselves in the honor flight. And so we've decided last summer we started this again with the Military Women's Memorial. They record stories, which is right up our alley. And so you can create a profile and register with them so that their registry is literally full of the stories of servicewomen. So we have partnered with them to interview our ladies prior to the flight. I write up a profile for them. And when we are there at the Military Women's Memorial, we present them with, it's a really nice presentation with their profile printed out, a beautiful image of the memorial itself. And it's in the heart of the memorial. So it kind of gives them a moment to feel recognized, to feel individual instead of just, there are 5 ladies grouped together or 1 lady or whatever. And so we've expanded to involve the community in this effort. So there is a small fee that the museum incurs when printing it out and for the presentation folders and things like that. So for $26.50, you can sponsor this kind of presentation. And not only do you just get the knowledge of knowing that you got to share this moment with one of our servicewomen, but we give you the opportunity to participate in mail call ahead of time. And then after the flight, we send you a picture of them at their presentation, receiving their certificate of the registration of their stories. So it's a really special moment. But there's another way you can get involved. If you are interested in actually interviewing the ladies over the phone, you can be part of that process. All you have to do is email me at outreach@honorflightcmh.org.
That's pretty cool.
So it's a really cool way, and we've had a lot of people excited about that. But to give a specific, in in reading these profiles, I was really impacted by one of the ladies. Her name was Priscilla, and we asked them a series of questions. So we give you, as the interviewer, questions to ask the ladies. And so one of the questions is, what's a challenge that you had to overcome in the military? And she said, rather than overcoming a specific challenge while in service, she viewed joining the military as a means to overcome the difficulties of a challenging childhood.
Wow.
And I thought that brought up a perspective that we don't talk about a lot. I think a lot of times we're talking about how the military, it's harrowing, it's challenging, whether you serve stateside or in country. But at the same time, the military is a family. I mean, there's this bond that people have, whether you serve together or not. And it can be a kind of escape. And so it can be an opportunity. A lot of our veterans talk about the military was opportunity for them. It gave them the means to travel, or perhaps access to education or jobs they wouldn't have had. And so for Priscilla, I think, wow, what a powerful admission that she made there in her profile. I was really struck by that.
Two things on that note. One being, you were talking about family and
Yes.
finding family. I know I showed you a quote from a video not too long ago. It was a Vietnam soldier after, and it said, "Family isn't who you're born with, it's who you die for."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of those people find that there, you know, for the rest of their life. And I wanted to mention too, because it was pretty neat. Lori, one of the we had talked about it a little bit ago with Tim and Lori. She
was a guardian.
She's guardian.
This trip.
Yeah, and she said, you need to take a picture of the back of this coat. And
so who was wearing the jacket?
Tamara, one of our female vets. She was a sergeant, and the back of her coat, it said, I took it outside of Women's Memorial. It said, less than 2% of American women have worn a military uniform. And then it says, keeping our country free for 100% of Americans. I'm proud to be one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Less than 2%. And
that's
protecting
really cool.
the 100%.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So,
yeah, they were a great group of ladies. And I think too, we've got some really great welcome home footage. I know Priscilla's actually pictured in the reel we posted this past weekend after the flight at her welcome home.
Yep. Julie,
Julie,
Tamara,
Julie,
Nancy, Patricia, and Priscilla.
Patricia was really neat. One of my veterans that I had the privilege of being a guardian for is her neighbor.
Really?
So he has called me a few times kind of leading up and told me, I encouraged them to go. I was like, they got to go. You got to go. Because her husband was on with her as well.
Really?
Yeah. They were trip buddies.
I didn't get the chance to meet her at all. So
yeah. And they were paired with Rachel, one of our high school guardians this trip, who she's amazing. She told me after she texted me this weekend, and Patricia and her husband have already invited Rachel over for a game night.
Oh, really?
Which is so cool. But yeah, really special group of women.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
So then just to keep us moving along here, again, if you're interested in being part of that opportunity, send us an email. It's also listed on our website. But I did just mention, and I think this is a good place to kind of move into a close here. We had 4 high school guardians on this trip. Rachel, and she was one of them. We had Olivia, Donovan, and Maddie. And this time what I noticed, I was really struck by something Maddie did. We teach all of our guardians, how do you preserve the dignity of our veterans while keeping them safe. And for this high schooler, didn't know I was watching. We were at Arlington. We asked all the veterans to stand on the bottom step. This high schooler, the veteran went to take a step up to get higher, and she just very confidently and articulately and kindly just asked her to step down, which might seem like nothing to you and I, but for a high schooler to pick up on the importance of that, huge. And I was just so impressed by that, and I was so impressed. Like I said, Rachel had a great relationship. And both Rachel and Maddie had female veterans. So they had this extra step in their process of helping me with the profiles and did such a great job. So we start tomorrow interviewing for the fall kids. So look for that application. Will reopen again for spring 2026 here in about May.
Yep. And going through to just talking about the ending, welcome home, beautiful as always.
It was a loud crowd this time.
Extremely loud crowd. Yeah.
One of the loudest I've had. Like my Apple Watch is like, you're in too loud of an environment.
But if you're ever wondering, you're listening to this podcast or you want people to learn more about it, if you're a veteran, you're like, my family didn't get a chance to come, or you have friends that like don't know what it's about, go to a welcome home. I mean, that's how I got involved in all this. It's very moving. You'll see, just to see those faces, you'll want to do more.
Get ready. It'll change your life.
Yes. Next mission is 141.
That's correct.
The date coming up on that?
May 8th.
May 8th. So you'll hear from us.
I hope I know.
You'll hear the debrief after that. But it was fun. It was a good
It was
one.
a really good trip.
Yeah. And it's going to only get warmer and warmer. So
Ooh, get ready.
My name is Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And we appreciate you coming on the 140 Mission Debrief. We'll talk to you guys soon.